Football is back, and BetOnline is your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with all the up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. From week 1 all the way up to the college football playoff and Super Bowl, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Remember, use your promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. It is the Arizona Cardinals-centric specific show. Of course, as we talk about the Arizona Cardinals here in the Phoenix metropolitan area, I am one of your hosts. I am Javon J. Love Adams, and with me, as always, is a man who played not only professional baseball, but he was a terror. He took the risk, the calculated risk, and made that jump to play in the National Football League and was on that first Super Bowl-bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm speaking about none other than Ed Easy Smith. What is good, my brother?
What up, though, Jay? Crazy week of football, including the Cardinals game. Oh, my goodness. Just shocks around the league. But, we'll get into this one here. Crazy, man. Crazy week.
Yes, sir. Let's get into it. So, of course, we do this. Tell a friend about what we have going on here. We do this now during the season, Monday and Thursday. So Monday and Thursday, you can expect to make sure to see with us. You can also tell a friend to search Bleav in Cardinals, and you can also get a Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals, whichever one works for you. But we got to get this recap of Game 1 for the Arizona Cardinals, the new regime, the new era, whatever you want to call it, the newness that's going on. And so, of course, I want to talk about the overall recap of the game, things that stood out for you, how you think that the team performed. I want to talk about playing scared, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, maybe you'll see where that is. And then also, when you say you want killers on your team, does that equate to penalties? So let's get to the first off. So the Arizona Cardinals, they fought, man. They came up short. They went to Washington, or went to play the Washington Commanders, and then ended up falling short in the okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, whatever. This thing is tripping on me. But they ended up falling short to the Washington Commanders. What was that? 16-10, 20-16. 2016. So what were your thoughts on this game, man? I was pleasantly surprised. One of the things that I love, I mentioned this on our radio show on Saturday, which we do 1 to 3 Eastern on SportsMap Radio, sportsmapradio.com, is we watch the Cardinal games almost like as a family. So me, my wife, and my youngest son, and then my oldest, of course, is in Norfolk doing his thing. But it's so we get into it. My wife is yelling and screaming, but we kind of get into it. I didn't expect us to be getting into it as much as we did. What were your thoughts overall on the game?
Overall, it had a weird taste to it.
Okay.
And I'll say this much. After the rest of the week, because we had the early game, yes, we were in an early window yesterday.
Yep.
After the rest of the weekend unfolded, it was like, wow, that would have fit right in if the Cardinals had somehow pulled this game off. You had some really strange occurrences around the league. This would have just been another one of them. This was, in my opinion, an opportunity for the Cardinals to get one. We both thought this was going to be a mollywhopping over there, even though it was against the Commanders. And it's almost like, did the Commanders play down to the Cardinals, or did the Cardinals lift their level up just enough to make it a contest? And you think about this too, Jay. We both called the game. We were like, this is going to be 24-9. You said something 24-10, something, right? Yeah. Okay, think about this. If the defense didn't score that fluke touchdown that they got basically gifted by the Commanders, they ended up scoring 3 field goals as an offensive unit. So that, that there's good, and then there's, that this game was one, played a little bit in the elements, it was a little sloppy from a standpoint of penalties. I know we'll talk about that later on. An opportunity for the Cardinals to get one. Was I impressed with how they fought? Yes. Was I unimpressed that the penalties, the offensive, I guess, output, if you want to call it that, there's a lot to look at and say, okay, we could have got one here. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. It wasn't as good as obviously, to win this game. But, it's what I saw was just something I saw from around the league. And I'll continue to say this until there's a change in the preseason again. There's a lot of preseason football that's going to be played in September going into October moving forward. That includes the penalties and everything else. You look at some of these results, you look at and I know we're the Bleav in the Cardinals podcast, but you look at the Cincinnati Bengals put up 3 points. I mean, and that's my nephew's on that team, so I spent 100% time watching that game. It was disgusting. So this is the type of football that we might be in store for the first month of the season moving forward, because it is everybody's preseason, getting some of the kinks, ironed out. We obviously, like I said, we will look back on this one, depending on how we finish up overall in the season. We'll say we could have gotten this one, which, the Commanders tried to give it to us. We just wouldn't take it from them.
So you mentioned, and you mentioned the defense. I was impressed with the defense for sure. And again, not to overreact, because I already heard some folks just overreacting, especially if you're a fan of a team, then you start to overreact if your team loses. Right now, if you're a fan of the New York Giants, you are supremely upset. But what I mean by that is that if looking at the way that the defense played, we talked when we had a little bit of crosstalk last week with a little bit of Bleav family interaction here, I mentioned one of the players to keep an eye on was Jalen Thompson, right? But I also mentioned that Dennis Gardeck, he's that guy that has that proverbial high motor, and he did some things in terms of flashing yesterday, just with his energy level and just going 100% all the time. I want your thoughts on Zaven Collins, our man Zaven Collins. He actually got an interception. I mean, he was present on the field, and it wasn't as if he was just, oh yeah, by the way, Zaven Collins is there. So there was at least some bright spots there. The defense at this point seems to be ahead of where the offense is, and I think that's the case for a lot of teams at this point in the season. But I was pleasantly surprised by the defense and some of those young players that were making some plays as well.
Yeah. I mean, this will be a meeting today where they can pull out a lot of positive from the game. A lot of times, you'll go and it's just a total debacle, and the coaches will even tell you, we're not going to enjoy watching this film. You guys got a lot, and they will have a lot to learn from this. But you did see guys flying around a little bit. And you saw, like I said, some turnovers, created some turnovers. They got the score on the defense side of the ball. Offensively, it was a mix. They only ran 58 plays, I think it was. And, Washington only ran 60 some odd plays. So it wasn't like it was a offensive explosion from either side of the sideline. Balance wise, they Dobbs threw the ball 30 times. We ran the ball a total of 25 times. So balance, they didn't go out there and throw him all over the place.
Under center. How
Under
about
center,
that?
Yeah. You talk about, and I know, was it too conservative? Maybe they had
I do want to talk about that. Yeah.
The handcuffs on Dobbs a little bit. But what are you supposed to do when the guy's only been in the building for 2 weeks? It's not like you can just throw the kitchen sink at him. He probably was, as far as the terminology and trying to just get the plays out of his mouth. And there's a lot of struggle that goes on there identifying the coverages. They probably tried to make it as simple as possible, maybe oversimplified it. And I will say this, maybe to a point where, I'm not saying they thought they were going to take a beating, but they're probably in the fourth quarter of that game thinking, wow, we didn't even think it was going to be this close. And then it was, now we have to try to, let's see if we can win this instead of just trying to keep it close, that type of thing. Yeah. But in the end, just didn't have enough firepower. From the Washington standpoint, they're probably sitting there thinking, how are we going to let them stay in this game and almost lose this game, Yeah. So a lot, from the Cardinals standpoint, you as a family, you're watching it, a lot to be encouraged about. also a lot to be discouraged about, but
Okay.
we'll see where it moves from here.
Now, one of the things that I mentioned, or on last week's going into this game, I mentioned in terms of the coaching staff. So I definitely want to get your thoughts on the coaching staff and how you feel that they did. So here's what I'll say: when you mentioned that it seemed a little bit conservative, and the first half, okay, I can understand that you're trying to get a a feel of how the day goes, but or how the game is playing out. But when you're in this game and you have an opportunity to try to maybe take a shot here or there, or do some things to take a calculated risk. It didn't seem like they were doing that, especially in the fourth quarter. I remember saying multiple times, you got to take a shot here. You got to take a
Yeah.
shot. So I don't know if it was the fact that Dobbs wasn't looking down the field. I would probably say it's probably more along the lines of the offensive coordinator saying, "Hey, just kind of let's go to the sticks. So let's just try to we're just going to try to keep moving the change and moving the ball down the field as slow and methodical as possible." And I think that's where it probably negatively impacted the team.
Yeah, yeah. And you get to a point, Jay, where they they were in a game plan and they never came out of it. Meaning they started
Mm.
trying to be conservative and try and then and like you mentioned, as a fan, you're watching it. And there were times, Jay, as a player, you're sitting on the sideline, especially if you're the defense watching the offense, and you're watching them just dunk, dink, that type of thing. By the time
Yeah,
you get into the third and fourth quarter, there are guys on the sideline from a defense unit like, man, come on, let's get down and let's do it.
yeah.
But if you come in with a conservative approach, it's hard to just take that jacket off in the middle of the
Mm.
game and show everybody the mushrooms on the inside of the jacket. We got the mushrooms out. It, you
Yes,
just
sir.
you never get to that point. They were just trying to figure out a way conservatively to not give it up and maybe we can still win this, but they never opened it up, and that was part of that is fear a little bit.
Okay, so let's go into that. So is it possible that it's so fear being one of it? Is it possible because it's a young inexperienced coaching staff? I won't say
Inexperience, yeah.
so because can that be if you're an experienced or a veteran coach or a veteran coordinator, offensive coordinator in this instance, can't you fall victim to the same bad habits there in terms of if I'm typically conservative, then I'll stay that way all the time, or if I'm always go 100 miles an hour, no matter what, the game is close, you're still trying to go 100 miles an hour. Is it inexperience, or is it what do you equate that
It's
to?
inexperience, but it's also a learning process, Jay. You got to
Okay.
remember, this is, even for Gannon and the state, they'll look at this as well and figure out, man, we probably should have took a shot here, or we should have did this.
Yeah.
And this is, I imagine Gannon, if he has a mentor or two, Sirianni over in Philly, right?
Right.
This is on a Monday. They watch the film, they go through everything. Then, not to try to grab too many secrets or anything like that, but this might be an opportunity for him to ring up his old buddy or whoever his mentor might be. Can you
Yeah.
grade me on this? What's that? And then as you get more comfortable in your skin, you'll start to open it up a little bit and take some of those shots. And you don't want to come out the box being that dude like Staley over in Los Angeles with the
That
Chargers
goes for it no matter
and
what,
go,
right?
yeah, and just does some of the dumbest stuff. You don't want to be that dude right out the box. But you'll, as a staff, they'll get together. They'll write their grades down. Here's what next time maybe we should have pulled this out of the bag or take some shots down the field. They'll get a chance because you got to remember while you're going through it with all the live bullets and everything, Jay. It's so far easy for us to look at it and we're like, why don't you throw the ball down
Yeah.
the field? Do that.
Yeah.
They're in the midst of it, and it's almost like, and by the way, this is 9/11. We want to, maybe at the end of the show, we'll just
Yes,
acknowledge,
sir.
and I don't like making references to military and stuff like that, but this is one of those opportunities where maybe big, like in a military, like you're playing the game of war or something with your kids, you pull the big tanks out and you
Yeah.
take some big shots,
Right.
that is something you learn and get more comfortable with down the road. And that's what they'll be looking at. And, if they're doing a fair evaluation, they'll come up with, here's where we could make some changes and be more aggressive. But that first time while you're going through it and everything whistling by your ears and you got the 40 seconds to make your decisions and do this and do that, and maybe we throw it down. No, let's just go ahead and hand it off on this play. Right? And I will say I did see a little bit of, they were doing some, some jet sweeps and some different things.
Yes.
It wasn't just turn around and hand the ball. They did, there was a couple plays that were, they showed some spunk a little bit. They just didn't show enough. Yeah. Definitely in the moment to loosen everything up and, like you said, take some of those big shots down the field.
Bleav in Cardinals. It is Ed Smith and Javon Adams. Now, I don't think that, again, it's one game from me looking at him, from paying attention to Josh Dobbs. He's not the worst, and he doesn't pop as in going to be a star. And why didn't somebody have him start earlier? But I think if they game plan appropriately it seems like he might be able to push the ball down the field a little bit, or be able to at least manage a game. And that's not in the derogatory sense. That's in a complimentary way of saying being able to manage the game and keep his teammates calm. And it would seem as if there is some belief maybe in his ability to at least to hold things down until either Kyler comes back, or maybe they make a change to a Clayton Toombs sometime during the season.
Yeah, no, you got to remember too that he probably heard, how many times do you think they said to him over the week leading up to the game, make sure you protect the ball,
right?
Be careful. And so you get to a point where he's thinking, I can't do anything stupid. Otherwise, one, this is his opportunity. He's been given the starting role with an organization. Coming into the season, how many people thought Joshua Dobbs would be starting anywhere? So this is obviously his opportunity. He's going to try to manage it as best as he can, do exactly what the coaching staff asked him. And what did they probably ask him? Make sure you just protect the ball. Just, if nothing else, we can live with a mistake or two here, but not the big mistake. So they probably drilled that into his head so much. He's looking down the field and he's seeing all these different colors flying around, and the check down is always your best friend. And rather than heave it up into traffic, I will say he accomplished what they probably told him to do. Protect the ball, don't do anything stupid, and no interceptions, no touchdowns. That says it all right there. 0-0, and he threw the ball for 132 yards. There, a lot of the quarterbacks we saw this weekend, they had that going into the second half. That was his total. That means there was a whole lot of, protecting the ball.
And that is interesting though. If you say something over and over again to somebody, whether it's positive or negative or whatever it is that you're trying to program somebody with, if they are saying just protect the ball, and you see a shot down the field, I can't do it, dog. Because you hear that there's that voice in the back of your mind that tells you that. So Bleav in the Cardinals. I wanted to ask you this: 9-122, 9-122, 9 penalties, 122 yards. That stuck out to me, because if you're those are things that can, silly penalties, whether you think that they were penalties or not, silly penalties in terms of unsportsmanlike and all that stuff. That you can't have that if you're already have to be nearly perfect, or if you have to be very spot on to give yourself an opportunity to be in games. Penalties can kill you. And at least in week 1, I won't say that they killed them, but they didn't do themselves any favors. But 122, that number is still a big number.
Yeah, we talked about that too at the middle of part of the week. We talked about this is a game where they would have to be absolutely perfect to be in it. And they actually found themselves in it. And what the penalties did, they came back to haunt them. And they're drive stoppers. They'll put you in the hole. There's all kinds. This speaks to discipline as well, Jay. I'm not sure. I've been on teams before where it was preached. Penalties we were not going to stand for. And then on Mondays when we got back for our just our conditioning part of the day, the good organizations I was with, we always had to run penalty laps for penalties that were on Sunday. It was almost too ingrained in you. Don't think that on Sunday we see those yellow flags coming out. they were penalized on Sunday. We're also going to do some penalty laps on Monday. This is all about discipline. And the toughest part about, especially in the early part of the season, when you're trying to get your wind up and you're tired. What happens when you get tired, Jay? You
You
lose
make
your focus,
mistakes.
make
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's all, so there's all kind of lessons that will be learned from that. You were talking, you've been real good on the fact that the cultures try to be changed from within.
And I wonder if you're trying to preach, I need y'all on the edge. I need y'all killing. I need you aggressive. And maybe they say, oh, you want aggressive? I give you aggressive.
It's got to be controlled aggression, though.
Yeah.
Penalties are something that if you're, here's a coach, I guarantee you they pulled every one of them up and they're going to address them. And now it's week by week. Let's see that total come down.
Right.
And if you're going to be a good organization, or you don't have to be, here's the thing, you don't have to be a good team to not have false starts, delay of games, even holdings, unsportsmanlike. There's certain penalties you can control. I was on the Falcon team. We went up there for the NFC Championship game many, many years ago against Minnesota. We did not, in that environment, we did not have one illegal procedure call as an offense. And that was going on silent count and different things like that. Also, we had to communicate, stay on sides, and I was a tight end. I was off the ball. I was at disadvantage because when I was off the ball most of the time, hand on the ground, I couldn't move till I saw everything else move. It'd been real easy, with all the movement and stuff on the other side of the ball for us. But we had practiced that. It was all about discipline, staying within our, game plan. And that's something they'll learn. And this is, like I said, these are, the good thing is in game one, they're all teachable moments, Jay. So the penalties, not good. We did a lot of things. I can imagine the speech, but we did a lot of things good in this game. We also did a lot of things bad. Let's pull up these 9 penalties, and those are going to be on a reel. The good coaches, they don't wait for you to see it in the middle of they'll pull all those out and they'll play them back. The 9 penalties, they'll show them to you separately so they can address them individually and as a team. So we know that this cannot be tolerated. And for those who don't get on the bandwagon of this can't be tolerated, at some point we'll be doing it somewhere else because we're not going to accept that around here.
Now, before we head out of here, because we know that this week, and I'll actually be at this game for when the New York Giants come into town, so that should be interesting. We can get into on Thursday. We'll get into the whole what the makeup of the crowd will be.
Yeah,
yeah. It's gonna be interesting. But you talked about having somebody, maybe if Gannon has a mentor, Sirianni or whoever that might be. Is it, if you are, let's say, a coordinator, let's say I'm the offensive coordinator, should there be somebody, not the head coach, because the head coach is focused on, the bigger picture, right? Should there be somebody, maybe a wide receiver coach or a offensive line coach that is that person that you mentioned earlier that might say, hey, coach, this might be the time to take that shot, or this might be the time to as he comes to the offensive coordinator to kind of to shake you, so to speak, so that you aren't becoming so predictable? Because I knew what to expect I think this in a negative way. I knew what to expect from the Cardinals, that you're not going to take a shot, so we don't have to worry about the big play. If we can just keep everything in front of us from a defensive perspective, if I'm Washington, then that's all I got to worry about.
Yeah, no, they should have someone assigned, as the head coach. You also want to be accountable to somebody. So there's normally someone in the building, and I don't know what the title would be necessarily. Everybody has a different title these days. But someone, and nowadays, Jay, think about this. Nowadays, every team has an analytics guy even up there in the stands. Somebody to point out, this is where we go for this, or this is the percentage of this. So regardless of what the title is, everybody's got somebody nowadays. And they'll have somebody tapping them on the shoulder. And then especially after watching the film, fans think you just go and everybody just watches the film once. By the time the Cardinals get to meetings this morning, meaning the players are even in, the coaching staff's already seen the film. It's already been broke down, and they've watched it.
Should the
sometimes
players
four.
have watched it? If you're trying to be
Nah,
a great player, should they have watched it? Should you watch it as a great? If you're trying to
players
see
don't
where
even
you're
have
at,
access to it until
okay,
they come in the building.
okay,
Nowadays maybe they upload them to these tablets and stuff, but mostly, but you got to think about it. West East Coast game, they
yeah,
traveled back. By the time they got back here yesterday, it was late in the evening, and guys get home. Guys got to get treatment, different things like that. Players are on a totally different schedule. The coaches, they're breaking that stuff down already on the plane flying back. By
mm,
the time they land, some of the ones they're not heading home. They're heading to the building to get another look at it and
man,
maybe go home real quick. And then the life of a coach,
woo,
that stuff has already been broke down and reviewed 3 and 4 and 5 times before players even walk in the building. So
man,
there's a lot of scrutiny going on. And, coaches are grading each other. They're grading their players. The head coach is grading every individual coach. So it's a lot. It's a lot going on between yesterday's game and the time everybody walks in that building this morning.
oh goodness gracious! So Bleav in the Cardinals. So if I had to give, just in terms of on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of 10 being, hey, they go into the Super Bowl, and 1 being number 1 pick on the way. I was I'm a 4. I'm a 4. I'm a
I
4,
would
maybe
sound in
four
the
and a
area
half.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I thought they competed, and again, that shouldn't be, that should be the expectation coming in. I get it, but because we didn't know what to expect, and it's just week 1, so we don't know if it. I'll say this much, and this we'll get into it again later on in the week. The way that New York, the way that the Giants did not show up, and the way the Cardinals seem to show up, if this game coming up is close, that would be a little bit of I was gonna say cause for concern, but again, it's week 1. So what do you know? You don't know what
yeah.
to expect until the first week 5. We'll be able to understand what the identity of all these teams are, as I listen to my partner Ed Smith when he tells me these things.
Well, I'll say this much: wouldn't you rather be coming home after what was our score
20 to
20
16.
20 to 16 and the
Yeah.
40 to nothing beat down
Oh my God.
uh, by,
Oh
by
my
the count
goodness.
by one of your arch rivals?
Whew.
The mood in our room is a whole lot different than across the way right now.
Yeah.
Now we'll see what 2 teams coming into the stadium this week, but wow, there's wins, there's losses, and then there are losses.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But when you hanging with us, you always a winner. You're always in the winning column. So this has been Bleav in Cardinals. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend about what we have going on here. We do this on Mondays and Thursdays, and so we will see you. We'll see you on Thursday as we look ahead to the upcoming matchup with the New York Giants as they come here to State Farm Stadium. So as we always like to say around this time, we are presented by Bet Online, and as we always like to say around this time, you can